Okay. Perps. Call them perps because they're committing criminal acts. I've listed them before. What are they after and what are they up to? I will show you I will explain some of the symbology that they use and what it means. First of all, you would have targeted individual and they're harassing them because of their genetics or their physiology. So in physiology, you would have people with Anatolian bumps. You'd have the church that forces them or requires that they remove them. Buddhists and other people that have Anatolian bumps do not live by this rule. Their rules are based on counting these lumps. You would have an Anatolian bump, you would have an Adam's apple, you may have a cervical arthritic bump in your neck. They call this a Trinity node. They mess with this, you'd be paralyzed. You would have people that are harassing you because of numerological significance that has to do with your anatomy or your physiology. So on that list, you would have people that have 33 vertebrae. Now, understand, every person has 33 vertebrae. They're fused in various locations to create the 32 count, or whatever you would have for a count. So you would have those people that are ignorant of numerology, and they would be harassing you because Mother Teresa theoretically had a number 9 numerology. Mother Teresa did not have a number 9 numerology. Mother Teresa had a number 7 and 8 numerology and Pythagorean numerology, because the rules state that you would use a person's name on their birth certificate at the time of their birth to calculate their numerological number. So in numerology, they target the number 5. In Pythagorean numerology, the number 5 is the god Mercury. A lot of what your victims think is a dupe. It is mercury poisoning. You would use the term mad as a hatter. Mad as a hatter comes from the fact that they used to make hats hard out of felt with mercury. And the mercury created all kinds of mental illnesses. So you would have this phrase, people would use it, they don't know what it means. He's mad as a hatter. He's mad from inhaling mercury vapors. You would have the left-handed, they targeted and harassed left-handed people. They targeted and harassed left-handed families. In other words, you'd have a family that would produce a lot of left-handed people. They would target and harass these people. Then they would take things and move them into various places where other people wouldn't be harassed with them. So you would have left-handedness, and left-handedness would mysteriously become a left-handed trait because of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and a few other people. By the same token, Nelson Mandela and Barack Obama would be left-handed too. So these people have extreme behavior. They will take what used to be like good nature, ribbing or joking, and take it to extreme measures because they have difficulty in separating the figurative from the literal. Most TIs will be cut up the crack of their butt. They will have marks under their chin where while they were sleeping unconscious or so forth, they pull their teeth forward. A famous TI would be the Bellboy Sniper. He would be a commercial truck driver and diesel mechanic that lived in Tacoma, Washington. They would claim that he was paranoid. Usually they say paranoid and in the street schizophrenic gets added to it. We would know that Muhammad Allen was not a paranoid schizophrenic because they wouldn't have executed him if he was. In his pictures, you'll see that on the left cheek, he'd been hit several times and it's swollen. You would look at his chin under the gun line and there'd be a mark there. That's from where they would pull his teeth forward. That's something they call Beetlejuice. TIs that are left-handed will have all of their teeth correct on the left side of their mouth. You would have things that you would believe are high-tech, and they're simply handheld lasers that are used to shrink varicose veins, and stun guns and tasers would be the extent of their high-tech equipment in most cases. The rest is drugs and poison. So then you would have them and they practice diuresis. And once again, that's the what they call the uniting churches, targeting people that for whatever reason your relatives may have had you targeted because they screw around in one of those goofy churches. So another targeting point would be the femoral artery on the left or right side. They refer to the occlusion they create as keys. They would have instances where they're harassing you over hemisphere dominance based on Pythagorean numerology as opposed to science and physiology. So you have what they believe a right brain person is black and a left brain person is white as males. So they would target black males that would come from the following backgrounds: military, trade and technical occupations. They would have education above college, and usually their targeting starts with household incomes at or above $50,000 a year. They will refer to the African Americans as coconuts or grays. They have terms like leftover. That's the person they're attempting through noise and through damaging the other hemisphere to force them into the opposite hemisphere. Most of this information is based on stereotypes, and they're working to make the person into what the stereotype is. So they would be harassing me about being a truck driver and how the level of driving that I would do. This is based on a racial stereotype. They would want you to cook in a restaurant or work in fast food, which is what they want most black people to do. They just haven't admitted it yet. Most of this has neo-Nazi teachings and backgrounds in it. And the black people are ignorant that participate in it, along with any other people, Asian, so on and so forth. So between the numerology and the junk physiology and trash theology, you would be dealing with gangs of people that belong to various religions. People have referred to it as love. Another thing they harass and pick on minorities with is, as part of this diuresis, they try to block hemispheres, damage the cerebellum, damage the frontal lobe on one side or the other. Left-handed people, they try to damage the left motor hemisphere, which is on the right side of the head. So frequently, a left-handed person or someone they suspect of being left-handed will have a gash on the right side of their head at the motor hemisphere on the right side. You'd have the Methodist Church, and they have an obsession with the pineal gland, which originally it was thought that the pineal gland was a human being's connection to God or the higher power. So they believe that black males should be right brain, or most males should be right brain in some group, because right is masculine and left is feminine. In your brain, your left side of your brain triggers and responds to testosterone in both genders, and the right side is triggered in response to estrogen in both genders. Estrogen in childhood years guarantees right-handedness. Left-handedness comes out of excessive testosterone in the womb or a gene sequence. They tend to argue back and forth as to what it is. So in the left-handedness and the gene sequences, there are the genetic issues that they would discriminate against people in relationship to. So they would tell you that left-handed people are prone to schizophrenia. I would discover that left-handed people are prone to psychological torture and harassment to drive them into schizophrenia. Schizophrenia occurs 3 ways. First would be it's genetic, it runs in your family. Now, you could also have the church running in your family for several generations because they keep records and they're running your left-hand family members crazy. The second would be huffing of hydrocarbons. An example, sniffing glue, or them gassing you with propane. And the third would be placing that person under constant mental stressors. You'll see people wearing their jackets like straitjackets. That's because they're there to deliberately drive that person crazy. They pantomime out various things. If you watch as a target, you will see what it is they're messing with you for. They'll also signal to the other TIs, the other Perps, or the people that surround you 24 hours a day, where to hit you when they get an opportunity. So we're going to talk about lights in the brain hemisphere, and you're going, Tom, what in the world do you mean? Well, we're going to post some pictures on my Facebook, and I'll explain to you. All right, now I explained that what they do with the brain, where they're trying to make women left brain dominant, making men right brain dominant. Hemispheric dominance is part of environment and neuroplasticity. In other words, teaching and training. So, we will have your car. And as a TI, you will notice that the car has a headlight out. Or has tail light out, and a headlight out. You look at the back of the car. The central cerebral artery represents the tail light in the middle. The tail light on the left side represents the left side of the cerebellum and the visual cortex. The tail light on the right side represents the right side of the cerebellum. The headlight represents the left frontal lobe and the right frontal lobe. So you'll have cars riding through your neighborhood with headlights out and tail lights out. And this is what that represents in regards to the target. It's either the way they are trying to make him through damaging portions of his brain, or it is the way they believe he is based on their surveillance and stalking and profiling of him. Now, remember, all of this constitutes an egregious invasion of your privacy because these people represent not-for-profit corporations you do not belong to. So in order for someone to establish whether or not you are left or right brain, they have to surveil you and follow you around for extended periods of time, go through your resume, look at how your house is configured, interview your friends and your relatives, they will try to establish it by your taste in music. Now, most of them are extremely right-brained and they have a mental health issue that's referred to as intolerance to ambiguity. So it frustrates them when things aren't the way they believe or the way they were taught they should be. Most of them themselves suffer from some form of mental illness or some form of brain damage. A lot of times you have an ever-growing population of perps because they are flipping the people that are targeted. That's called pat and turn. Now, pat and turn. Pat is Parents Against Tired Truckers. And turn is an abuse they would do to injure a truck driver so that he can't work in the industry anymore. One of those tortures is called windshield wipers. Now, windshield wipers is damage to the cerebellum to severely affect visual tracking in the individual. Now, part of their cerebellum damage is a belief in the cerebellum as being low brain that people held a long time ago, and they believed that was solely related to hand use in relationship to motor skills. But your cerebellum in your brain controls the tracking and movement of your eyes. And in one eye you would have depth perception, and our targets frequently run into each other. And the other eye you would have visual tracking, and our targets frequently pull out in front of people where they get hit. So this is part of a diuresis of the brain that they engage in, and they want to force upon other people. The reason why they would have this elaborate government scam is that a lot of the things they engage in, they have argued with the UN in regards to. Like harassing people to get them to join their church and chasing them around. It's a violation of Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Section 1, which forbids religious coercion of any kind. So you should not be experiencing this in any country that is a UN country. It's a violation of your human rights. You would have a right to privacy. In that right to privacy is something they call bodily integrity. So it's a violation of your privacy rights as a human being. No corporation or organization should arbitrarily interfere with you and your family. So most of this constitutes an egregious invasion of privacy. And under the law, it would constitute aggravated battery, conspiracy to commit aggravated battery, frequently mayhem, which the Methodist organization that calls themselves D, which is made up usually Methodist and Lutheran men, specialize in. Mayhem is the illegal act of injuring a person where they can't defend themselves or scare away an attacker. So there is a long list of laws that they frequently violate and acts under the law in the United States that they're opposed to and they subvert. Now, they call this thing a insurrection, is what they called it in relating to me. Now, under federal law in the United States, if a person in a government agency participates in an insurrection against the government or its policies, they're supposed to be forbidden from working in public office again. And they're not supposed to be allowed to until they would petition Congress for permission to go back to work. So we're going to try to make this one short. Be sure to watch it. That's it for now.